Vi, Ryze, Vi. Well, I mean, there's a couple of bot lanes you want to pick in as well. Maybe you go towards a bot lane pairing at this point. But I think Leyan on Vi, that's already kind of terrifying. He's very good at that champion. We saw we could do in that last game as well. It really is what you want to just pair up with that. Most teams will go towards that bot side, but okay, change of tag, going towards that Maokai again. This is the second game for Leyan on that champion. For me, I find it really strange that they wouldn't go towards what has been a real staple for their team, but hey, maybe they're trying something new.
Trying something new, seeing maybe that Xiaohao had a little bit too much safety, and I will say the Maokai is still exceptionally powerful. It just is something that it is kind of, if you can have it, you should work with it. As we can see now, maybe they're just trying to say, look, you know what? Let's just swap. You can have what we had, we'll have what you had, and we'll show you that we are just straight up the better team.
Yeah, you know, when you have like an atom and you add or take away bits of neutrons, they're called an isotope, which is technically the same thing, but they're slightly different. We're getting an isotope of rare atom in this game. They're picking up that Jayce. It's not what we know from them typically with that Maokai. The Jayce is still something which is, it's been played by Strive the one time. I don't think Cube has picked it up just yet, but this could be the game for it because, I mean, we know that Cube has been manhandling opponents, and ZDZ has been struggling with that. It's not going to be the Jayce in that top side, though. You assume that's going to be the Renekton towards that top side. Well, I know it's legit. They couldn't deal with it last time. Reason stands that they won't be able to deal with this time either. You're probably going to be eating up a couple of top lane bans as well. You've given up priority bot lanes for these duo solo laners being picked in, but if you ban away what you can potentially survive on that top side, I cannot see ZDZ having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like now with the combination you've got available to you, you're just going to be able to kind of totally focus on this top side. Yes, it's an Ashe Varus, exceptionally powerful. You've given a hell of a lot over to AL in terms of the bot side power. But we did see that it didn't really make that much of a difference between Betty and SwordArt. Yes, they got a couple of kills. Yes, they were able to kind of, you know, mitigate a lot of pressure coming out from Sssum and Southwind, but it didn't make that much of a difference. What was the difference maker was the solo lanes from RA. RA were able to have much more of an impact in those big mid-game team fights. They were able to have much more of a priority for themselves, and I feel like that's just kind of RA saying, look, this is how we play our game. Sssum, Southwind, you're just going to have to survive because we're going to go forward. We're just saying, look, our top three is how we're going to play this game.
Lots of AD carries being removed from Ssum's pool, and this is going to be a little bit different from Sssum and Southwind. Now, you can see that Draven ban. That Draven was played against top esports. It was one of the real few very high volatility bot lanes that we saw kind of being played by this team. They tend to like to go towards something like this, like the Zeri, which means that you're likely to, I think you're likely to see Zeri or Sivir Lulu, something like that, which can fit into their style of kind of saying, look, bot lane's just going to chill, they're going to be there for a while, and they're just going to hit you in the mid game and the late game. Sssum and Southwind, very hard to rock. They tend to be able to survive through to that lane very well, through to the mid game. But this is a very... I love that RA have done something a little bit different with the draft. We're so used to seeing Maokai, well, the jungler plus bot lane for teams in this draft right now. Saving your bot lane and your support for later into the draft is not something we see as much, but it means we get to see something a little bit more unique from these teams. Like Ornn, we don't see as much, but ZDZ trying to survive against the Renekton in that top side.
Yes, I will say, though, as well, Ornn, fantastic if you can get him past level 13. You got to get there, though. That's the big caveat with all these different things. You got to get them to the late game. Lee Sin for Xiaohao, as AL are just pulling out all the stops and saying, look, we just need to try and get comfort for some of our maybe slightly weaker components, and we are going to be able to try and just completely outscale this game. You have the Ryze, you have an Ornn for the extra little bit of scaling as well. You should be able to do a hell of a lot in those team fights should you be able to get rolling.
Yeah, that Lee Sin is literally there to go, oh my word, how are we going to survive past these early lanes? Right, Lee Sin, early game powerhouse, that's how we're going to live through this. Of course, the buffs to Lee Sin haven't come through yet. We saw Knight play at mid lane. I expect that we will see it as a flex pick in future patches. Right now, though, Lee Sin still kind of from the jungle being a level 3 to level 6 kind of like real powerhouse around the map. Can bully out the Maokai at some points, but you're really here to try and save your lanes, maybe make an aggressive play of your own, maybe around this bot lane, particularly if that's going to be the point of power for you in the early game, to just try and get through to a point where you're Ornn and this side of the map. We talked about that game 1 being a factor when you had the Vi kind of flying into side lanes. In this game, though, when you're against a Renekton, Cube's Renekton, this Renekton will be able to 1v2 at some point. The Jayce as well, also very scary in a side lane setting, so AL probably not looking towards that. And of course they have a team fight in comp, but sometimes you have to make plays on a side lane to set up for those team fights later on. And even in those team fights, though, you're dealing against Maokai saplings, dealing against Maokai ult, which has been a very strong team fighting ult for the last few patches. You're dealing with a Jayce, you're dealing with a Zeri Lulu. AL, as much as I think that they have a strong mid to late game comp, that doesn't mean they instantly win when they get to a point in those later game skirmishes. For me, I feel like they have to start stacking some dragons, play through that bot lane control, and then see if they can force RA into uncomfortable decisions to stop them having clean team fights themselves. Whereas on the side of RA, I mean, like, just you've got a really good comp. This shouldn't be that bad for you. I think that AL going to be pigeonholed into some very difficult points in this game.
Thumbs up on the top side. Both teams look to try and just get an advantage here in the bot lane. Again, something we are expecting to see. The Ashe is just obnoxious with those volleys. Of course, you get the hail of arrows coming down as well, which is going to be pretty damn easy for them to confirm those setups. But looking forward now to see what it's all about, where this early Eastin goes, because the Eastin is only going to be as good as the ganks he pulls off.
Exactly. So, eyes on Xiaohao. What can you do with this early power? That's going to have to be a big sticking point for AL. Strive not being allowed to walk up to the wave level 1, you can expect that Jayce, if he doesn't get a level 1 trade where he gets to actually like hammer form onto you, can find himself falling behind a little bit, but later into the game, of course, Jayce very, very strong in these individual matchups. Leyan going to be spotted out by a hawk shot somewhere across the rift. There he is. So he's going across that mid lane. Full information for Xiaohao to make a play somewhere. And he's spotted on vision as well, so that's not going to be the easiest play for him.
Well, he should be able to get in onto this jungle, but now having that full vision, we might see a rotation come out here from Strive. They now know what he knows that they know that he knows. So everyone's just kind of musing the priorities right now. I do love what we're seeing here from Ping Z.
Mid lane dive could be an angle.
Could be an angle. We will see the shock blast coming in. Strive has level 3. Whoa!
Oh, he's tanking.
What is happening right now? That was really disconnected there from AL. It looked like the mid laner decided he was going to go for a gank, but then the jungler had already left.
Oh, but Leyan does not have the damage to deal with this.
He does not. He will have the flash to try and get himself away. The blue buff will reset, but that's going to be a successful invade here from Xiaohao. And at least, look, I'm going to say it all the way from the start. This is what I wanted to see from Xiaohao. You're on an aggressive early game jungler. Get in the face of the enemy jungler. Do not let them scale.
Yeah, I think the decision-making is fine. It's just the execution which is off there. We've seen a couple of mid-lane dives come out from, particularly against someone like a Cassidy. Can very much see that. Sssum going to find out Xiaohao, poke him out just a little bit, but doesn't have a support in lane to really make the most of this situation. Xiaohao spotted still. He's actually going to take away most of this bot quadrant, this blue buff steal, and that Gromp is not going to be the wolf. Certainly, manages to at least get a hold of that. But this is again kind of what you need to see from the Lee Sin. If you're not doing this, there is a much larger problem. Kingsley maybe setting up once again to do something mid lane, but it's not like they forced the flash out of Strive. Strive pretty happy with at least how that's gone. Talked about how the Jayce can be very strong after the first few levels in individual matchups in kind of mid lane. Struggles a bit more than he does in top lane in regards to the very early levels, but as it stands, Strive still doing pretty okay, down a bit CS, but at least holding on to that flash in his life.
Yeah, again, you know, losing that flash there from the Ryze was definitely a little bit of a social faux pas, shall we say, as he now
Hang
kind
on,
of...
what social faux pas?
Social faux
It's like,
pas
oh
because...
no, I have used my cutlery wrong. I should have used my soup spoon instead of my
Exactly!
dessert spoon.
You shouldn't have used your flash when the jungler wasn't coming in.
The
That's just a
etiquette of
social
League of
faux
Legends.
pas.
It's like when it's like when you're in Earth, at least in Europe. When in Earth, when you take that cannon, everyone level 1 goes towards top lane. Apparently in Korea, it's all going towards bot lane. I'm not sure what it is in China, but having to study up on Earth etiquette is not necessarily what I expected to be doing with my time as a gamer, but here we are.
There you go. Social faux pas. You know, it exists in all facets of life.
What would... Have you made any social league faux pas recently? Anything that comes to mind? I really wanted to dig into this topic. I feel it's really interested me right now.
I would love to dig in deeper, but Leyan is going to spot out Xiaohao on this dragon. And an early dragon take is great, but it is difficult to do by yourself. You got to be very aware, very careful about what you're going to do. But with the mid lane push and the bot lane push, it does look like AL should themselves that dragon.
The most classic of League of Legends faux pas. Trying to make a play when you don't have any of that old priority.
You're getting it.
There you go, get it. Yeah, it's under relate these things. But Thingsy, SwordArt and Betty helping out Xiaohao get onto the map. So, early dragon stacking, that's something that we put on the shopping list for anyone's legend to get ahead of the game. Xiaohao at least can take away that blast cone to keep his bot lane a little safer in case Leyan look to use that as a pathing assist towards this bot lane. And this bot lane, we've kind of talked about this for Sssum and Southwind as well. It's kind of what we've come to expect for them. Holding on to the laning phase and just eventually getting to the point where they can team fight. But for now, they're sitting there and trying to survive, get to the point where they can really team fight later. This is not their fun part of the game. This is not their happiness.
This is not the Zeri gets a pentakill like she does in every other league, every other day moment of the game. That comes in about 20 minutes or so.
We only had the one pentakill. We've had the ruler one. Did we have another pentakill yet?
No, we didn't,
so?
but I believe Gumayushi had one. I believe Berserker had one last night in LCS. So it's a lot more common than not, despite the nerfs coming out to Zeri in most of the patches. I believe she needs a couple more.
The only champion I can think who got loads more was Nymaera on release, because Collector was super broken on that patch, and it had like super high execute, super high stats. So Nymaera would just fly in, reset, and everyone get pentakills. That was a pretty crazy time, but yeah. Zeri, we'll have to see if they can get themselves some multi-kills later into the game. For now, though, we're still in that stage of the game where Rare Adam are responding to plays. They have the Maokai side of the jungle matchup. That's what we've come to expect from Maokai. You're responding to plays up until you get your ultimate, which is coming up soon. Which will be, of course, very important to track for this Herald. With the camp steals, though, coming across from Xiaohao. Need to see, very importantly, whether Leyan will actually get level 6 off of these last couple of camps. I have to assume that he will do. He's got a couple of camps to go through, which means that at least Rare Atom will have the ability to at least look towards that Herald if they should wish to. Maokai, Renekton, very strong in that top side of map around this point in time. Yeah, the level 6 has been hit by the Maokai, so just watch out to see if anyone's legend do approach that objective, because Rare Atom should actually be in a position to fight around that for a little while, but that timestamp's been hit. And Anyo's Legend would rather go towards his bot side. They have themselves a Realm Warp heading over this wall.
Yeah, they're going to go for it. Thingsy will get himself over the wall, but flash forward. Sssum doesn't have to use his flash because he has the cleanse. That's 4 people being committed towards this bot side. It is going to still be pressure towards AL. Flash actually burned by Betty as well. He tried to get the flash.
Yes, flash still.
Sssum, why would you walk forward onto that? They were just there. They will get the kill. That is just a really bad mistake from Rare Adam's bot lane.
That is a huge oversave. Very greedy. Just lose the wave. That's all you have to do. Just leave the wave. Strive wasn't roaming. Leyan has already been seen on the Herald. You know he's not coming. You don't have a teleport from the Renekton. You have nothing to play with. All you are saying is, I hope they've left. Surely they won't stick around. But they have.
4 seconds
that
longer.
Wow, that's such an inconvenience right there for Xiaohao. Staying a little longer. Gets the first kill on the board for the Lee Sin. So you do get that Herald into mid lane. You get some gold up to Strive. Strive gets some plates as well. It is still gold over to solo laner of Rare Atom, and Cube still doing fine in this top as well. But for a team that really wants to survive through to the point where Sssum and Southwind can start impacting these team fights, that's a social faux pas, Sheen.
Absolutely. The theme of the day is social faux pas in League of Legends. But yeah, honestly, that, like, again, this is kind of similar to game number 1, where it was just AL very good at capitalizing on just very poor mistakes coming out from the side of RA. And for RA, like, yes, you do have priority in your top side. We haven't really seen them be able to kind of really leverage that. The Ornn is a really nice pickup, I feel, for ZDZ, just because it can just soak up so much of that pressure just on his own. And
which is needed.
Has been yeah, absolutely. And Xiaohao has been aggressive and very proactive on this Lee Sin early. So far, all the boxes have been ticked for AL in terms of what they wanted to do with this comp for the first, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I do think, again, it's worth putting it into perspective. Kind of need to do this when you got a Lee Sin, particularly when you have very high value kind of mid to late game champions in pretty much every role. roll on Ryze. Not that you don't have your own tools to fight with, but still. The Lee Sin can help you get to a point to set some of these lanes behind and allow your Ryze and the Varus the ability to kind of get through early game to a point where they can just be really oppressive in mid lane. Leyan, this is one of the reasons I was like, why don't you just pick up the Vi? Why don't you go back towards that pick? It's been so successful for you. Ryze, they're not on the front foot with Leyan kind of being an initiator for his team. Of course, that ultimate can be fairly big in those team fights on the aggressive front. It's more of a disengage ult though for games like this when you're playing around protecting your backline of a Jayce and a Zeri, but Leyan not really having the impact we know this player can absolutely do, partly because of the draft.
Partly because of the draft. Leyan and Southwind though. Southwind just get clipped there by the arrow and he is dead. Again and again, we're just seeing very odd decision-making coming out from RA, really not respecting the boundaries of what they're playing into, and fair enough to AL, they're punishing fantastically.
Yeah, fair play to AL. They're kind of just they're taking what's given to them. They're making the aggressive plays, Xiaohao and the Lee Sin, managing to make something work, very importantly so, and this is before someone like Cube comes into the play. Cube isn't being able, the MVP from game one, this Renekton that is so powerful, hasn't been able to impact this game so far. And Renekton, I mean, they use a Maokai in that situation, they don't have it for those team fights, and they're getting to the point where they're getting a little bit worried about this Dragon stacking. It is the Chemtech Soul. When you have something like an Ornn, actually that Chemtech Soul can be quite important because he does spend a fair amount of time below half HP in team fights. It means that he'll have a fair amount of value. You have a lot of champions which can sit around, particularly on that top side, around that lower than half HP and deal out damage, keep themselves in the fight, which is what, of course, the Chemtech Soul kind of lends itself towards. And Renekton, if they're not careful, they make a couple more mistakes, and this game quietly slips away from them, actually. This has not been particularly clean for them. They need to find something of a way to kind of establish themselves a part of the map to play around. The Renekton is fine playing in a 1v1, but he's not breaking turret plates. He's not really doing much for himself. Maybe you're waiting for a second Herald spawn in 2 minutes. Maybe that could be something you play around, but Renekton, I'm not really sure what they're going towards right now.
Well, Run of Ages has been picked up here by Ping Z, so he's going to be stacking that one up. Should have it for 23 minutes. It's going to be even more pressure, more advantage, shall we say, for AL. And for RA, and like you said, it's just not really coming together as probably as cleanly as they would have liked, or as, I suppose, just as well as they probably would have hoped for, because it just straight up feels like a little bit of disrespect coming out from them, as we do see the Umbral Glaive now being picked up, so you're going to have vision control pretty much wherever they want to go. We are going to see a full engage here onto Betty because they have the cleanse, but a really nice arrow does stop anything else from going out here. Xiaohao gets caught up. SwordArt, you're not going to be caught by that one just yet.
Ryze.
Rage pick as Leyan is now in a bit of no man's land. He's going to try and flash away. He does have an extended blast cone to keep him relatively safe. Xiaohao going to use that one to his advantage. They're going to try and fight this one off, but the Q has landed. So again, RA going for something, overextending after the play, and just kind of getting punished.
Like, okay, I get that you need to make a play somewhere, but again, you don't have the vibe. You don't have that same ability to just like lock someone down with this early burst. The Maokai has gone for the Night Harvester, has a decent amount of damage. I guess it does have a decent amount of that burst, but you can see that it's much harder to coordinate these plays with the very slow ultimate. Sssum does a pretty good job of jumping forward, understanding that if they get caught on turret, things get pretty difficult. And someone like the Varus can't run away from the Zeri who's ulting at them. Clutch arrow from SwordArt makes things difficult, but Sssum, they make one of those mistakes which we say are kind of in limited number now that they're allowed to. You make another couple of those in the game, it's very, very difficult for them. It's not easy already, and this second Herald, which we were talking about potentially being an object of concern, is not something that Renekton can now fight around anyone's legend. They managed to absorb the first real aggressive play from Renekton in this game. They get themselves a second Herald, and credit to Xiaohao making the Lee Sin work out. It's not a pick that we see nearly as much nowadays, but definitely getting value out of this pick in a game which was looking fairly difficult for them, especially after the real destruction of game one.
Yeah, Leyan trying to see if he can walk forward into this mid lane. Not going to be happening though, as I said. The Glaive has been picked up here by SwordArt, so he has plenty of wave clear, or some ward clearing power. As they now get shutting down mid lane, that tower is pretty much guaranteed to fall. The ult is just to keep the tower alive, I guess. SwordArt does get caught out a little bit. They're trying to really hard force onto this. The chain of corruption stops everybody. The Ornn cube has to flash away, but he can't survive. I just don't know what you're trying to go for here. All right, they're panicking, and they're looking down the barrel of what could nearly be a perfect game because AL are scaling.
This is not what your comp is meant to do. First game of the split, first game of the season was versus LGD, and they were locked out. 0 kills in that game. They got completely monstered by a Skarner pick of all things, and Leyan played as Diego and was found very much wanting in that game. And this game, it feels a little similar, actually. It's been a couple of games, a couple of series at this point, but I don't think they understand what they're doing with this composition. This is different from what we normally know from them. They're not playing Divide, they're not playing... Okay, I believe that's a big map flag. I think that one just flew up into the horizon. But it doesn't even matter. The fact that you can miss the Ashe ult and still get away with this play is deeply concerning for Renekton. That is... I don't know what else to say. You just shouldn't be making aggressive plays like that if you're not able to set up for that Maokai. It has to come in from a much better angle, or it needs to be much closer, or you need to have something else linking into it, which your team doesn't have. Renekton just shouldn't be going for that kind of play.
No, and now they're 5,000 gold in the hole. They're going to be looking down the barrel for some points. That is just not what you need to be seeing. And again, we talked about, yes, it wasn't a perfect game one, but it was good from RA. They kept with the vibe. They knew how to engage. They were just feeling confident this time around. I feel like they just kind of kept some elements of the game one confident, traded it with other elements. And again, the big thing I'm looking at right now is that you're engaged. You don't really have a huge amount of it. The Maokai ultimate is a secondary engage. It is fine to follow up on something, but it's not going to be working out for you if you're just trying to use it as a full-on initiator. So Strive in a bit of a bad situation. Enchanted Crystal Arrow goes in. We are going to see him now just getting kicked back, and he's risen up, and gets himself a kill. Good damage there from the Night Harvester on the ultimate on Leyan, but it does not matter. And this is honestly, it's just so weird to look at and watch, because it is just one of those moments where you're like, where did this team go from game 1 and 2? What happened in game 1 and 2, or between it, that traded this such a change of pace?
Yeah, I get that it's best of 3. I get that first game was a big kind of point of power for these for this team, Renekton, where they could kind of legislate, look, this is completely, everything is normal, everything is completely as we've kind of come to expect it. Maybe we try something different. Maybe that's what they're thinking. But if this is the Super Blast gun's so funny, man. But like, if they're trying something different, this just goes to show me once more, one of the things which I hated that they did against top esports, well, they went away from what they have been successful with. You know what you're good at, Renekton. And I understand experimenting a little bit, but maybe don't do that for game 3, because if this is going to be the way that you play, I'm expecting you game 3 at this point.
I mean, yeah, I think it's totally fair. This Renekton is effectively useless at this point in the game, to be totally honest. Went for the Black Cleaver first for the laning phase, but Black Cleaver will only mitigate so much armor onto this Ornn that is stacking armor at this point in the game. You've got no real pressure in Ryze. Xiaohao and SwordArt are linking up exceptionally well. They've got perfectly good vision all around this Baron pit. Yeah, I mean, what is Strive supposed to do here? He can't walk up. That tower's as good as dead.
Very difficult situation for Renekton. Arrow flies out. We're going to miss. We're going to be coming through there, but the fact that Renekton is so far behind means that they actually don't have themselves in the chaos yet onto Southwind. That means that the Varus and the Ashe have much higher value. The fact that Cube is not insanely far ahead means that the side lane play that we alluded to is going to be a little bit harder. Ashe taking matters into his own hand, though. Zeri's going.
Zeri is going. They're going to try and use that as their initiator. They're using that as their team fight tool. The barrier's not going to be enough to save the Ashe. 2 kills. They did lose top turret, but now they might turn and Baron. This is off spawn. This is it. This is literally the game. They can't wait any longer.
They can't wait any longer, and they might not. They might be lacking engage, but Sssum takes things into his own hands, dashes over the wall. Xiaohao's still around, but in a 3v5, what can Angel's Legend do?
Can they indeed. Xiaohao going for the long flank, but now he's completely separated away from his team. Cube is fairly low. The Baron resetting, and these health bars, or excuse me, these death timers are coming back up. The Realm Orb does get used. The Baron does not get taken. Alright, get a couple on the board, but it's not going to be enough. They needed a little bit more there. And I feel like it's going to be hurting them a little bit more as we go on to this next dragon in a minute.
Yeah, okay. This is a creative engage. I like this. Sssum just says, alright, got the wall ride. Let's see what we can do with this. Capture the Ryze and the Varus outside of this fight. Betty not able to impact me. Misses that also on the backside. This is about as good as it gets from Renekton. You have the follow-up on the Maokai after things have started. It's a bit of an unorthodox engage, but Leyan's already died in his own jungle, so you're taking that one. And this is why we're saying, actually, it's not enough just to take those picks. You needed to get this Baron. You need to stay on it. Maybe flip it a little harder, because now you're sat down at, you're staring down at AL getting the Baron themselves. No contest over this one. Your jungle's already dead. This is going to go straight into the Dragon at this point, spawning in 40 seconds. This game is looking very, very dire. This game is as good as done. Yeah,
I mean, it is a little small thing that I don't like to do, calling it before it happens. And yes, there is a world where, you know, the crazy and unexpected can happen, but it's just not very likely. These are professional players who play the percentages.
Yeah, I understand not calling it very often, because then that takes away the value of when a game is very done and something comes back. This is the kind of game where you don't expect Renekton to really come back into this point. As you were saying, Renekton lost a lot of value, going to struggle to get onto targets, which they want to. Renekton, they are dealing with multiple objectives being thrown up against them. You're looking at probably an Elder Dragon steal, if anything, to get them back into this game. I don't know whether they're going to be in a position to even contest that at that point. They're already behind, what, 7,000 gold at this point. They're staring down a soul, even though it is the Chemtech, which is the weakest of them, in many people's eyes, mine included. That is why we call these games done, because if it does end up coming back, that gives you a great scale for how this game should have happened. This is not supposed to be won by Renekton.
I mean, look, Southwind hasn't got an item yet. Southwind is still sitting on component versus an Umbral Glaive and an Imperial Mandate, so even in the support matchup, you're just not going to be finding much else from it. So Chemsoul confirmed, you're trading a tier 2 for a tier 1. It just feels like RA just forgot who they were and how they played the game, and now they're just being punished for it. We will see the ultimate come out.
Do you think between this game and the next one, if it comes around, we need to have like that Mufasa in the clouds kind of Lion King vibe of remember who you are, rare ass.
Honestly,
try and get them to draft fight. You see like Vi's power gauntlet in the sky, and Leyan's like, wait, I know that champion. I can play that champion. Ditches the tree and goes back to that one. Anyway, some more soul searching to be had at some point, but that's what I'm really hoping to happen between maybe this game and the next one. Arrow lands. That is a disgusting amount of damage.
Yeah, but the game is pretty much done at this point. The Lulu has nothing. The flash forward there for Pink D, gonna try and secure the kill onto Strive. Leyan goes down, but Cube staying alive. The Zeri is next to follow. It is a 4 for 1, and it's 1v4 now for Rare Adams Cube. This is just, honestly, just such a strange game too. Fantastic from AL. Do not want to take this away from me. Drafted good lane phases. I like the Lee Sin. Xiaohao was very aggressive on it, but this just feels like such a weird game for RA to bring into game number 2.
Yeah, all that the light touches is your base. Why can't I see anything? You don't have a base anymore. Nexus going down. Teleport back to the base from Cube, but he is just... That's a delivery meal. That's your Uber Eats going straight back into the pockets of AL. It is not a perfect game. There were kills, there were towers, but it is still a pretty crushing loss.
Yeah, that was honestly just fantastic from AL because, you know, fair enough, they weren't making a huge amount of noise in game number 1. Game number 2, they picked the Lee Sin. We wanted to see early skirmishes. It's exactly what we got from Xiaohao. And not only that, but the opportunities that RA effectively laid up in front of them for no real reason. Say, look, here's a free kill, here's a double kill, here's a tower, here's a dragon. They just took and said, thank you so much, you're so generous, because it just felt like AL just basically accepted everything with gracious arms because RA were just willing to give it to them.
Yeah. It did feel like RA, they played away from their comfort style. Don't think we can... We came out of game 1 just saying, look, we know what RA are good at. What more can we say? They didn't do that in game 2. Hence lies the issue. I don't want maybe RA are going through this kind of process themselves where they're thinking, actually, we have a style that we're very good at. We need to start discovering some other styles just in case in further series into the future, and particularly against a team like this, where they're kind of going like, oh, you know, anyone's legend is 0-5. This is a good opportunity for us to try out some new stuff. The fact that they can't make this work against AL is equally concerning, though, because if you are pigeonholed into one style in best-of-3 leagues, when you're against teams which are very good at drafting around whatever intricacies that you pull at them, that is maybe something to put a pin in for future series and future games. Despite us knowing that this team can be very good on their preferred champions, if they can't do anything else, even against a bottom-of-the-table team, that's a worrying sign for them.
Yeah, it really, really is. And honestly, you know, you play a style, and you think of some of the best LPL teams in the history of LPL, that they've always been good at, you know, like back in Xiaohao RNG and stuff like that, that they've been good at one particular thing, and they always put it, even back in the Uzi days for RNG, where it's kind of like, you know they're going to funnel gold into him, you know they're going to give him all the resources,
yeah,
it doesn't matter if you know. Yeah, try and stop him, because no one else has figured it out right now, but it feels like RA are trying to go for something. And again, like, I feel like if you have the Vi here, you go with maybe the Ari again. I have no problem with this. I think that the Renekton is fine into ZDZ, but we just saw no pressure whatsoever from Leyan towards that top side. We didn't see a single gank into ZDZ, and we saw how powerful it was in game 1. Why not go back to that in game 2? It feels very disconnected.
Yeah. No, the way that I refer to the top LPL teams is the Elite Four, kind of the Pokemon vibes. So it's like, we are all playing towards this one Pokemon type, this one type of playing League of Legends. We're really good at this one style. RA have a style that they're good at. And yeah, maybe there are some worries about, okay, what happens if you only play that style and you come up against a really good team that just knows how to counter you? That's kind of, you know, tough luck at that point. This is one game in a best-of-3, but for game 3, you have to go back to what has worked for you. Just close out this series. AL, I think this game 2, much better look from them. Xiaohao, maybe he does need to be on something a little bit earlier game as well. The Maokai for him didn't really work out. I wonder if it's a bit of a bait pick for both of these teams if they need their junglers to be on the front foot and kind of making things work for them. Game 3, I have to expect a lot more from RA, though, because AL just toyed with them in that game.
Yeah, and it does feel like kind of a more overarching storyline in terms of the meta and stuff like that, with a lot of supports going Enchanter and AD carries effectively. You need to have some kind of engage. It falls to your jungler, but we'll have to wait and see what RA change, if anything, or if AL can continue the comeback. We're going to send